Okay, so this is part two of how to create youth to be leaders in a youth program or in a youth ministry. And, the second thing we really want to stress is it's very important to identify leadership qualities early in young people. Young people are growing, they're maturing. So right off the bat, you're dealing with not a finished product, but it's very important to identify, okay, what are some key characteristics to look for, right? So for me, one of the things right off the bat that I look for is humility and teachability, right? So if you have a group of youth, because you don't know what you're doing, especially when you come into a situation like ours, you don't know anything about flowers, you don't know anything about flower farming. So how humble are you? How easy is it for me to teach you, right? Because if we can teach you, then we can develop you, right? Then if we can develop you, that means there's a possibility that you could grow into a leader. So that's one of the first qualities I look for is humility and teachability. What do you think? How about you?
Yep, I agree with that. I think, you have to be able to separate out who's ready for that and who isn't. And I feel like that's a really good kind of preliminary test. And I think giving responsibility builds confidence. So you might start with somebody and say, well, they're not very confident. They're not going to be a good leader. But if they're teachable and humble.
Are you guys done washing buckets? Okay. Here, give Mama your phone.
What are you going to do?
You already know what you need to do. Here, give it to Olive will be in charge, okay?
Of what?
B-roll.
Yep.
Put
your shirt down. Keep your shirt down.
Here is your.
Okay, this is real life right here. Yeah, you gotta make sure you always button up your pants, okay?
She doesn't know how to button this.
Okay. All right. We're gonna have mommy and daddy, okay? All right. Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying that you might think someone's not very confident, they're not going to be a good leader, but responsibility helps to build that confidence. And if they're teachable, that's maybe the best place to start.
And then something else too, especially in our context, is looking for servant, basically, are you willing to serve, right? Because to run a good business, inherently that means you have to serve your customers, you have to serve your clients. In our case, our clients are people who are buying flowers for sympathy bouquets or birthdays or anniversaries. But you're in the flower business, you're celebrating and honoring special moments in people's lives, right? And then on the event side, it's like weddings or funerals or birthday parties or corporate events and that kind of thing. So when we go on site, for example, it's okay, is this a young person who's looking to serve when they're on site, right? Are they looking to serve the clients? Are they looking to make sure that they're going to provide the best experience possible for the clients, right? Because these are innate characteristics that they may not realize they have, but it's our responsibility as youth leaders to be able to recognize and then affirm them for it and develop it, right? Because I remember one time where we went on site, we went to some fancy hotel, and you had a youth who put his hand in the ice machine, and that's kind of for those you don't know, that kind of thing can really get you kicked out of a venue because it's obviously a sanitation issue, but also just kind of gave us a little insight in terms of that young person's mindset. You weren't there to serve. You're just there and you weren't thinking and you're just kind of goofing off. And obviously you got to correct those kind of behaviors too. But then you get the youth who do the opposite, right? Who come and they're in awe of the situation and they're really looking for opportunities to serve and contribute, and they're paying attention to the details. They're making sure that all the vases are at the proper water levels, that there aren't broken flowers, because they're thinking about it from the perspective of the client. You want that wow moment when the wedding party comes in and when the guests come in, they see the finished product.
Well, we've had so many youth too talk about how they feel so good making something beautiful for someone's really special day or special event. And then, sometimes we get to see the bride and groom. Sometimes we've seen a little bit of a ceremony, or because we have to wait, for a flip or whatever. And it's really cool because I feel like it brings home what these flowers are. They're not just something in a vacuum, but they actually are a part of somebody's really special day. So, including youth in meaningful experiences, whatever the context is that you're in, how can you find ways to connect what they're doing with a bigger story or a bigger purpose, so that can really solidify in them again confidence, because they get to be included in something really big, really special.
Even on that point is, another characteristic that we like to look for is trustworthiness, right? So, you've been in multiple situations where you have to trust the youth, right? You have to give them a certain amount of autonomy, right? Because like if you're doing a setup at an event, maybe someone's got to do the arch, maybe someone has to set up the garland, maybe someone else has to, set down the centerpieces. So is this somebody who you can trust to do an arch, right? And an arch is like usually like that's the showstopper for someone's wedding. Because like, these are gonna be pictures that are gonna be taken. This is where you say I do and you officially become husband and wife. And these are pictures that are gonna be remembered forever, right? That's gonna be passed on from generation to generation to generation, where it's gonna be, hey, look, there's a great grandma, and that was her on her wedding day, right? And there's moments where you had to like trust the youth to put up the arch, right? Like you kind of get them going, you make sure, but like you have to go do something else. And that youth has to knock it out. So like, what was that like for you when you had to
nerve-wracking? I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot. There's high stakes, and there's also we're working against like stereotypes, right? That like our youth can't do that, or we don't fit, we don't belong there. But you just gotta come in. I don't know how many times God saved me. That made me think of something that I needed, or that just I feel like God will honor like what you are set out to do. But at the same time, it bolstered people's confidence. It made them believe in themselves more, and now they felt like they belonged at that fancy venue. They had a right to be there. So then the next time, then they took it even more serious, And, you have to balance, obviously, giving some autonomy and also checking over, because I would do that, where somebody might have a responsibility. I have to run over to something else. I still make sure I have time to come back and tweak, correct, do what I need to do. So it's just a balance, but you've got to delegate and you've got to hand some things over if you're going to build those characteristics in young people.
And I think another key characteristic is like faithfulness, because, even like with the events, they happen at all hours of the day. Sometimes, they're very early. You got early morning breakfast, and you got to be at the shop at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. You're doing midnight strikes and breakdowns and, everything in between, right? So you need to be able to trust that, okay, is this a kid who can show up, right? Like when you need them. Can they show up when it's inconvenient? Are they going to be the ones sleeping in with a million excuses, right? So, faithfulness is definitely like another big characteristic that is really essential for this. If you can't be faithful, like we won't put you on that event. Like we will immediately pull you off. Yeah, what's up? You what? Okay, we'll get some pictures of the youth making different arrangements, okay? All right, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. So
other way.
Yep,
Hold it.
yeah, horizontal bite.
Don't be zooming in. Don't be zooming in. Media team.
Right. Yep. The kids are our media team, so they're still in training. But yeah, so faithfulness is definitely like another big trait that we look for.
Yep, I agree.
So, and then of course, there's like other traits like are you hardworking? Are you honest and have integrity? But like once you kind of like identify those traits, then it really comes to it's really more about developing them. And a big way that you develop them is by really like affirming those like positive qualities and building their confidence around that, right? So, if you have a kid who's faithful, just being able to tell them like, hey, it's really great that you showed up at 5 a.m. I've noticed you've always been on time, et cetera, et cetera. And then like, hey, if you keep it up, then, maybe we can start making you a priority youth for weddings and events, right? Because like, it's a very valuable thing to be able to do weddings and events because like kids can get tips. But we have kids get like $300, $400 tips before, right? Like doing a wedding.
Yeah, not $400.
I thought,
somebody got a little over,
okay.
Shay. Yeah. DoorDash, Shay.
If somebody got DoorDash. Okay, all right, we'll just stop there. But okay, so yeah, those are just some of our thoughts on the characteristics that, young people may have. You guys are in it, man. This is what's really like to be here.
Well, I think it's important. Obviously, we can reward youth with promotions, tips, like a job. Okay, don't distract the workers. Don't distract the workers. Okay, start sweeping again.
Yep. There's more flower clippings.
But there's other ways to find rewards, in whatever youth program you are in,
Right.
Just get creative, but it doesn't always have to be money.